Alexander Isak has joined Liverpool in a British record £125 million deal. 6-year contract at the club, and Liverpool have spent a hell of a lot of money this summer. Alexander Isak, Luke, is he going to play? He's not kicked a competitive ball for months.
Imagine that. Imagine he's forgotten how to do it. Like, he's got so het up on the move. Yeah. He doesn't even remember why he wants to move. It's a matter of principle for him now, and so he's gonna push. Look. I think what's fascinating. I don't know if you mentioned it specifically there, but didn't they not break the transfer record twice in the same window?
Florian Wirtz as well.
Wirtz as well. So ultimately it's interesting because Hugo Ekitike, for example, and there's talk of him sort of perhaps adopting a slightly different position, and I get that. But Ekitike started well; like he's been good, and so I did wonder. I was thinking to myself the other day. I wonder if the longer this rumbles on, and the more Ekitike scores, like it felt like every goal was basically another needle going into Isak's Ekitike voodoo doll. but how it has happened, and now they've strengthened in such an amazing way. I mean, if they can have a mix and a blend and get this going, because obviously they haven't looked fluent so far. It's a very, very powerful kind of tactic to just strengthen from a position of strength already. I do wonder with these things, and I'm clearly not saying that Isak isn't a great player, and he was obviously the most talented, exciting, available striker around this summer. But I do think there's an element to this where it's like he's automatically going to be brilliant straight away because we've decided he is, and because we paid so much money for him, and because we pursued him for so long. You're absolutely spot on, Pete, to suggest that he's probably not had a proper pre-season. He's not played any competitive football yet. It's going to take him a little while to get up to speed.
He's not got Jacob Murphy.
No, or even a Josh Murphy. Thank you very much indeed, who Portsmouth kept hold of. Fuck off, Leicester. Stop sniffing around. Not welcome here.
Stop sniffing around, leaving bits of crisps everywhere.
Oh, what's that? 10 million? Okay, you can sniff around for 10 million. Anyway, I'm digressing. But I think it is worth pointing out that there are factors in here which suggest that it may not be amazing straight away. It may not be a marriage made in heaven straight away. This is very much the married at first sight transfer. This is not a reality show about a loving couple who've been together for 25 years.
No, I mean, you got to look at how kind of Isak plays. He's a more generous footballer, great with his feet, and
a generous one.
A generous footballer.
Are you a generous broadcaster?
I'm a generous lover, generous broadcaster, generous family member, I would say.
You are. Yeah. You spend money at prepaid bars. You are a naturally very generous man.
Yeah. I just want to, if I'm going to be thrown out from a bar, I want to know that I've spent the money to get that inebriated. But I mean, in the situation with Ekitike, obviously Ekitike has played in A2 at times in his past and done quite well in it. But they're very similar footballers. I mean, everyone talks about Ekitike going to be spending a bit more time out on the left, but they're very similar footballers. And I know Mo Salah's going out on AFCON. I just feel like one player is going to find themselves out on the side of the pitch. Really, I can't see this.
It's
one
competition for places, though, isn't it? It's like we do this transfer deadline day show, and Vish isn't selected. Simple as that. See you later. We've got.
Even if we have spent 107 million on him.
Yeah, it fucking feels like it. Yeah. Jim, what were you going to say? Sorry, I cut you off.
Essentially, I'm quite intrigued by the prospect of two such similar strikers possibly playing together. Have we ever seen an example of that? Obviously, in the 90s, we were used to a 4-4-2, but often there was a sort of complementary element to the two strikers. There was something different about each of them. These are, very, very similar.
Maybe?
Yeah, maybe, but I suppose so. But I guess they're both very, very... I think you can make an argument that the style of forward that they both are is the complete forward. Yeah, maybe York and Cole's the best example of it, actually.
But I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. I'll tell you why, because York and Cole did have differences for sure. Which we won't bore people about 5 minutes into this show about the transfers. But the reality surely is that Liverpool are adopting this tactic, which says, first of all, we're playing and expected to do well in all these different competitions. Secondly, the games just never stop these days. Thirdly, we're Liverpool, one of the biggest clubs in the world, and we've got the money, and if the player's available and wants to come here, we have to think very seriously about doing it. And to an extent, the rest of it will sort itself out later because we should be able to have like I say, a mix and a blend with all these different players, plus AFCON, as you already mentioned. Look, some people are saying that Gakpo is the one who's going to miss out because he's going to not play as much on the left, and as you mentioned there, Pete, Ekatike may do that. I suspect that Slot just backs himself to get a tune out of them. But I just think it's set up for the pressure to be quite difficult for Isak because of when you behave in the way that he's behaved. And I'm trying to avoid judging him morally because I don't think it's right to do so. I don't know the situation, and it's a short career and all the rest of it, right? And Pete, you have your own take on it as a Newcastle United fan, so I'm not judging him morally.
I hate myself. I like it.
Yeah, well, you get a lot of confusing stick these days, particularly on YouTube. A lot of people on YouTube seem to think you're secretly a Sunderland fan.
Yeah, because I was slightly positive about their fan base.
Yeah, which is, by the way, you're doing yourself no favours with that. But anyway, the point I just wanted to make was that it's not a moral judgment, but when Isak behaves in a way that he behaves, it's so badly that he wants this move so desperately that he's it's a scorched earth strategy. What you're actually doing is inviting a lot of pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't hit the straps and hit the ground running in that new Liverpool shirt, and it's a heavy shirt, games are televised all the time, blah, blah, blah. It's a different level of scrutiny based on your own behaviour. So he needs to be big enough and strong-shouldered enough, broad-shouldered enough to sustain that. And if he doesn't, we've seen what can happen. Players can go on droughts and stuff. So I'm not saying that will happen. I'm just saying it's something to watch with quite a lot of fascination, really.
Yeah, I mean, his kind of all-round game was such a more important thing for Newcastle United because they weren't sort of blessed with forward players with skill and verve and as I said, generosity at the time that Isak was at the club. So for Liverpool, just goals are going to be way more important for him. And like you said, if he didn't hit his straps, you may find that the headlines are a little bit heavy on him.
Yeah.
For Newcastle, you sort of think that they've tried, I think they assumed because they had a load of money that they are a higher sort of level of club and not a selling club, not a stepping stone club. But this transfer window has sort of told them that they kind of are, and most players use Newcastle United as a place to get a better move, Jim.
Isn't it the case that it's essentially related to wages? That Newcastle are in a position where they can't really pay the same as Liverpool and the same as Man City and clubs like that. So they've become vulnerable to that in this particular situation. I think it might be it's probably obviously a very sad and depressing thing to lose Isak in that way. But if you look at the business they've done coming in the other way, I think there's an argument that they're actually better off. I think the squad is probably stronger now. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with how Nick Volter does. But I think actually there is an argument that it's a stronger squad this year than it was last season. I really do.
Yeah, all round you would say they've sort of had a lot of transfer targets sort of turn them down, and it's probably a good time to move on to Newcastle United's signing of Yoane Wissa.
You're definitely sure we haven't had enough column inches about and exposure and talk about Isak? Yeah, you sure?
Yeah,
you want to move on to a big move?
He's cult classic, not bestseller, is he? You're
definitely sure we've exhausted the Isak chat as a football broadcasting community. He's a big decision, Pete. Yeah. You want to move on? There's no going back now.
Let's move it. Let's find warmer climes in Yoane Wissa.
Let's take it round the back of the fucking stable and slot it forever as a story. I agree.
Can't be bothered. Yeah. Did you see that? Actually, did you see the Newcastle United? I'm back. The Newcastle United statement, but just like literally, a man has been signed by another football club for a record fee.
It was up there. It was right up there with Ruben Amorim's programme notes. For the Burnley game following that Grimsby defeat. I don't know if you saw that, which was basically, it was normally they're 2 pages long. It was basically him just saying, sorry about that.
We'll try to make sure it doesn't happen again. Yeah. Can't guarantee it though.
Yeah. P.S. If my kids are reading this, fucking, I hate you.
Oh yeah, I forgot about his kids. Yeah, I mean, like he won them a goddamn cup, their first cup in decades. Oh dear.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Let's move on now, though. Let's move on because you got a new kid in town.
We got a new kid in town. The new number 9 at Newcastle United. He drove there himself. Yoane Wissa. He drove there himself. That's all anyone talked about in this transfer. Obviously, it's a bit bubbling. Not really bubbling.
A man drove a car.
A man drove a car to Newcastle.
All the way up the M1. Is it the M1?
Yes, M1. Yeah, most of the way. And A19 if you want to see Mama Donaldson and Dada Donaldson. You don't want to.
That's important stuff because that's what the Ramble brings. You know, people talking about him driving himself. Donaldson will give you the route. Next.
Exactly. Yeah. You drive yourself through Middlesbrough, see where the inspiration for Blade Runner was as he comes over the
Middlesbrough,
the bridge. Yeah, Middlesbrough. Yeah. That's where
famously Ridley Scott.
Ridley Scott. He used to go to the college at the top of my street. So there we go. Yes, Yoane Wissa has left Brentford to join Newcastle in a £55 million deal. He's been given the new number 9. For me, he's not that number 90, and I think Nick Voltemada would have been a better choice because he's massive and he's number 90.
Yeah, but Wissa is very good actually as a central striker and as a wide forward, Pete. He's really adept in both of those positions, which is kind of why I look at Newcastle squad and think that they might be a bit better off now because he's got that versatility in there. So he serves that dual purpose where if Voltemada isn't available for whatever reason or he needs to be rested, then you can put Wissa in there and you're still going to be playing to a very, very high standard. I think it's a great signing. And it's one that had to happen now, I think, because of his age as well. And he'll be so determined. He will be absolutely loving life in the Champions League.
Look, Isak surely is irreplaceable, but the strikers and forward players they've sort of brought in, pretty decent consolation, pretty decent business all told.
Yeah, look, I haven't seen Voltemada play a huge amount. He's clearly an exciting young player. I think he's 23 now. Actually, he's not that young, but young enough. And he's massive, which
dresses very new metal.
And he's got a great style about him, which I think could lend himself more towards a proper cult hero status at Newcastle. Wissa's a good player. We've seen it. We know what he can do. He hasn't had a huge amount of prolific goal scoring seasons under his belt for his age, but I mean. I wonder if that matters these days. I mean, I kind of thought that a bit about Ekitike, and then he just hit the ground running, like he was just flying. So I think, look, the most important thing in this is you can, and this is a bit of tough love to Newcastle fans from a neutral here. You can talk about how irreplaceable Isak is. You can talk about how good he is. You can talk about how desperate you are for him to stay, but he doesn't want to be there. And I know it's the hardest thing in the world to understand that, but you can't make him love you, right? You have to accept it at some point and say that the idea of Isak playing for Newcastle and doing really well is just an idea now. Obviously, clearly it's just an idea now because he's moved, but it has been just an idea for the last 4 or 5 weeks when he's been set on leaving. And it's easy to say, much harder to do, and I accept that. But once a player has mentally moved beyond you, the best thing you can do is draw a line under it, tell him you never loved him anyway. Tell him that the sex was terrible. Write a really bitchy Instagram post about him. And
or
fucking move on, sister. Move on.
If I may briefly drag it back to Nick Voltemada, sisters, there is a chance that his dress sense will make Anthony Gordon start dressing weird again. So that's something we can all look forward to as well.
Gordon's got a bit of pedigree in this area, hasn't he? He sort of tried to Dominic Calvert-Lewin it and it didn't go particularly well. I'm worried it might lead him astray a little bit too.
It'd be like me. It's like when you rock up to the studio, Pete, in a Real Big Fish / No Use for a Name t-shirt. Right. It works. If I do that, people are going to stage an intervention probably and call my wife.
Especially if you're also wearing like tartan trousers.
Yeah. Also, Anthony Gordon's got plenty of time to go pop himself down to Urban Outfitters or whatever because he's on a ban.
He's on a ban. Yeah. He's on a threer. Tour. Can't remember. Elsewhere. I mean, we could have mentioned this earlier on, but Marc Guehi's moved to Liverpool. It did not happen at the last minute. Marc Guehi was kind of open to offers pretty much most of the summer months to go somewhere. He seemed very keen on Liverpool for obvious reasons, and Liverpool really needed him. Has to be said. Virgil van Dijk has not started the season very well, but an agreement to sign him had been reached on deadline day. Personal terms on a 5-year contract to 2030 were also in place, but Guehi's move to Liverpool hinged on Igor Julio before joining Crystal Palace and Brighton, but he opted to join West Ham after concerns over his playing time.
Imagine choosing to go to West Ham. That's wild.
You'll get some game time, lad, but you're not going to enjoy it.
Yeah, you'll get abused.
You can go to Palace and not play, or you can go to West Ham and have a shit all time. It's like Jigsaw's kind of options that he gives you in the film Saw.
If you want
do you want hypodermic syringes in your neck, or do you want to just set yourself on fire?
If you want to move to Crystal Palace, you're going to have to cut the deal sheet out of Marc Guehi's stomach.
Deal sheets. A lot of chat about deal sheets this summer.
That's all they talk about on Sky Sports News.
What's a deal sheet, Luke? Do you know what a deal sheet is?
When I was, I think we can kind of work it out. It's quite a descriptive term for it. When I was doing one of my favourite hobbies last night, which is texting Andy Brassel, trying to put him off when he's on the telly. Yeah. I realised that there's loads of talk of deal sheets. That's all they ever talk about. Like it's a crazy new phrase that's just come in to the vernacular for kind of no reason. But on the Guehi thing, I do want to just have a quick say on this, because a lot of people are making the equivalence between the way Guehi has apparently behaved at Palace to try and force his move and the way Isak's behaved. And I'm not casting aspersions on either player's character, as I've said, particularly not Marc Guehi's character at this point, because obviously I don't know him and that's fine. But what's worth remembering is that Guehi's played an absolute blinder whatever happens, because he's out of contract in the summer. Yeah. So in actual fact, there's no real reason at all for him to force a move, which is a terrible look for him. It would be really bad optics, because in 4 months, he can sign a pre-contract agreement at Liverpool, for example. There'll be no fee, and therefore he can earn shitloads more money anyway. So in actual fact, Marc Guehi hasn't behaved in that way, not necessarily because he didn't want to. I'm not saying he did or he didn't, but he just simply doesn't have to, and the situations are very different. So the fact that he's not got his move is kind of interesting for the reasons you've said, and obviously he would be a really, really, big signing for Liverpool. And I think there are reasons outside of the centre-back pairing why Konate, who was better against Arsenal, and Van Dijk haven't been right at their top level. And it's probably not time to talk about this now, but there's other reasons for it, I think. But they clearly wanted Guehi for a long time, and they clearly think he can improve them, and I totally see why. But Guehi's apparent behaviour or non-behaviour here is not the point. It completely misses the point.
There's also a mitigating circumstance with Igor Julio as well, which is it simply, had Palace been able to get a replacement in time, as Newcastle managed to do, then it would have happened. Yeah, so it's not quite as kind of simple as that comparison, is it really?
And it's a World Cup year, and he may not play every match at Liverpool, so everything kind of has fallen into his lap a little bit, and Crystal Palace.
He's played a blinder.
Also, doesn't it only seem fair that Liverpool should have a little bit of a question mark over their defence if they're going to have that attack, just for the rest of us, just for some sort of hope?
Yeah,
it's Newcastle United. It's Keegan's Newcastle. Unbelievable. Before Liverpool's game against Arsenal on Sunday, did you see that they were showing Flushed Away in the concourse at Anfield?
I don't understand this.
Well, it's a film about a pampered rat named Roddy St. James who's flushed down the toilet.
Thank you for explaining the joke to me. I didn't understand the relevance. I was like, this is just a bit random. I get it.
Do you
Very delightfully petty.
It's called St. James. I didn't realise that. Fair play.
He gets flushed down the toilet in his Kensington apartment by a sewer rat named Sid, and befriends a scavenger named Rita Malone in order to get back home while evading a sinister toad and his hench rats. So,
that is a dig, isn't it?
I don't think Alex Isak wants to go back home, or Trent. I mean, Trent might do. I think Trent might.
Yeah, I think he's having a great time in the last few matches. But it is an interesting little casting decision in the film Flushed Away. Hugh Jackman, Shane Ritchie, John Motson. What a dinner party!
Wow,
John Motson. All three of them. Do you know what?
Can I just intervene here with a very, very quick, not even a full anecdote about Shane Ritchie?
Okay, yeah, good.
So when I first worked at Capital Radio, Pete, remember we had that big charity day for the victims of the tsunami?
I've got your kids. Oh, right, okay.
Nothing to do with the kids, Pete. Stop saying that.
No, there's one called Cash for Kids or something.
No, this one was to do with the Boxing Day tsunami.
Right.
And because I was just like an assistant, I had to run around making tea for everyone and everything.
Yeah.
And there was loads and loads of really famous people there. Like, honestly, it was mad. It was
and
wild.
Shane Ritchie, by the sounds of things.
Well, and you know what? The only one who had like the absolute like room-filling charisma that had everyone like in titters was the lad Ritchie.
I could see that.
He was working. I've never seen someone to this day, and I include you in this, Jim Campbell,
Speller-esque.
work a room as well as Shane Ritchie. It was incredible. So good luck to him.
Yeah, fair dues. Fair
He's
dues.
not been
Well,
cancelled, has he? I haven't been checking.
Nah, I think
so.
he's still.
Is it okay for me to align myself with Ritchie in 2025?
You can be part of the Ritchie.
I'll
discourse,
Wikipedia it
certainly.
in a minute while you're doing the
Yeah.
break, and then I'll
All
just
right,
double
cool.
check. Yeah.
I mean, we've had like sort of funny DJs before, haven't we? Who've kind of chosen interesting things to play pre and sort of half time at football matches. The Portland Timbers DJ famously used to play the football Ramble theme.
Yes.
Peter Majuzzi at Arsenal doing the WWE themes and stuff. So I think this could be the next sort of thread for funny things to do. The concourse televisions. Let's get some porno on there or something.
God, that did not take long to descend into its lowest possible point, did it?
Correct.
Oh, by the way, guys, I think we're going to have to edit out the Shane Ritchie stuff because apparently back in the 90s he was giving away free tickets for Pontins to ticket touts and then selling them on for a profit.
Oh, come on.
That is the lowest of the low.
Who was the footballer who did that? Is it Dwight Gale?
Robbie Earl.
Robbie Earl.
Robbie
yeah.
Earl.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Robbie Earl and Dwight Gale in my head, the names are quite
Dwight
similar. I don't
Gale?
know.
Not related in any way.
They've
So
just
different,
got
it's
similar
unbelievable.
names, and I always think Dwight Gale when I'm in Robbie Earl.
Come on, let's have a break because I want to talk about Mr. Brobby.
All right, let's get out of here. We'll be back in a second with Donnarumma and Bobby. Possibly not Bobby. Welcome back to the Football Ramble. Gianluigi Donnarumma has joined Manchester City for £26 million. He has agreed a 5-year deal plus the option of a further year. We'll see how those legal tanglings sort of pan out on that one. But
Pete,
yeah, hello?
say it in an Italian accent properly. Do it like a proper, like Dolmio guy. Go on.
What, is this an edit point?
No.
Oh,
Is it fuck? Do it.
Gianluigi Donnarumma.
Nice.
Just like a PSG I used to make. Disgraceful. This show
I
has
love
descended into...
the quality of broadcasting where I suggest something. Can you just go? It's just an edit
Do
point.
it. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
just an accent as well.
No,
Just an
That's what you
accent.
get when I host. I'm not really sure what's real
it's like
and
this
what's
is the
not.
Athletic. They all do that when they say the names.
Yes, this is an interesting signing. I know he's been on a lot of money, obviously, in the PSG setup because that's kind of how they operate and have operated for a long time. But you think that like Man United would have had a crack at him,
I
either
think
him
it-
or Martinez.
Do
Yeah.
you know they had a crack at Martinez? I mean, let's be fair. Marco Bizot.
Bizot.
I think this is one in the eye for the nerds, and I'll tell you why. Right?
Mm.
Because any time any normal football fan, and I include myself in that to an extent, praised Donnarumma, right? You get all these absolute nerds, the pen pushers, the dweebs that have taken over football.
The Poindexters.
Saying, actually, the Poindexters.
The bureaucrats down at City Hall.
Yeah, the Brussels bureaucrats saying, actually, he's not that good with his feet, and he's very, very poor with his ball at his feet, and he's not that good. Actually, a good goalkeeper. And I tell you what's mud in the eye for them, because the man who is the human totem pole for playing out from the back is, of course, Pep Guardiola, and he wants him.
And he
Explain
wants him,
that, nerds.
Well, now we've come to a point where Pep Guardiola is the manager of a team who are facing shots for like the first time in his career. So he's like,
probably.
I have to change
I
tack here.
don't think Edison was all that good, to be honest.
I didn't even know the other team were allowed to do that. Get me Donnarumma on the phone. Stat.
And to be honest, like Manchester City for the longest time have been smashing it up the field anyway. People have kind of missed out on that. I mean, like you said, people talk about him, Donnarumma, not being quite that good with his feet. But surely that comes in two flavours. There's delivery, but there's also big game temperament as well. He might not.
He
have
also
the first
makes
intros,
saves
but
like fucking Thanos.
He makes
Yeah.
It's
outrageous
absolutely
saves.
unbelievable to save him.
He's
I actually
unfazable.
think. Look, I've said this before, and I got flack for it, and I can't be shaken from this opinion. And Jim, feel free to shout me down if you want. Right? I think Alisson is possibly the best keeper I've seen. I said this before. I just think he's amazing on his day. Right? And people fucking don't care.
scores headers.
Don't agree. He's just amazing.
He's a
I just think
brilliant
his presence
all-rounder.
is ridiculous. Yeah. But I don't think I've ever seen a keeper make some of the saves that Donnarumma makes. And I think if you naturally accept that sport gets better, sprinters get faster, records get broken, and players just improve for loads of different reasons, Donnarumma, I think, as I feel like I've seen him make saves that I'm not sure any other keepers could make.
Yeah, there's
and
an
maybe
aesthetic.
that's just the most important thing. And also Guardiola, Jim, doesn't he? He makes decisions about players and then they're just gone, aren't they? That's that.
Yeah.
And I think he's obviously done that at Edison.
Wait, he didn't do it quite so much last season where all of his players just absolutely
No, but
fell
I just
off
think
at
once
the
he
same time.
decides on a player that he doesn't want him anymore,
Yeah.
particularly a keeper, we saw it with Joe Hart,
Yes.
didn't we?
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
done.
Yeah, and we've seen it with James Trafford apparently as well. But yeah, there is something about Donnarumma, isn't there? That's very, very pleasingly kind of old school in the aesthetic of this absolutely massive bloke with really long like cephalopod arms, just flying through the air, smacking a ball away. Like quite often his saves are as aesthetically pleasing as a goal from a million miles out.
I also
something
don't.
else.
Yeah, I remember him making a save in the Champions League last season. I can't remember who it was against, but it was an absolute rocket. I've never seen the ball struck harder than that, and he gets down to it for a bloke who's about 8 foot tall, and by the way, he looks about 50. Which makes it even more interesting.
And he's
26. He doesn't feel. He feels like 34. You
That's
know what I mean?
because Pete, he broke into the AC Milan first team when he was 16 years old. So he's been around for a decade.
74 Italy caps. 26.
I thought you were going to say debut in 74 there. I was like, yeah, I can believe it. But anyway, he makes this save and he gets such a strong hand and wrist on it. And it took me a while to even process he'd saved it. So to see that every week. And what we might be kind of guilty of here, guys, is some of the stuff. When I used to be on the continent, sometimes you'd make a point and Andy or James would be like, oh, well, yeah, but you don't really watch him that often, which is true. And I think if we get exposure to him every single week, maybe our opinion of him will kind of, quieten down a little bit, maybe.
Maybe you'll keep tripping over the ball. We'll be like, oh, actually, yeah.
Yeah.
No, he's
feel like
really
James Trafford,
bad with this.
James Trafford, baptism of fire. What a fucking 3 months he's had, right?
Yeah.
Binned off of City, right? He's going to go somewhere else. City exercise their option and get him back. He gets thrown right in the mix, gives away like an absolute comedy goal at one point, right? And now he's turned up to training this morning probably, right now as we're recording this, and Donnarumma's shadow is just following him like a rain cloud wherever he goes.
Literally the worst person in the world who could be in front of you.
Yeah. For so many different reasons.
Completely agree. It's been a weird sort of close season for keepers. I will sort of stress the Man United side of things though. They did need help there, and I don't understand why they've not brought anyone in.
There's no way Donnarumma.
No, I don't think
they've got the money though.
He does look like a bit like a simple farm boy, but he's not that stupid. He ain't going to United. It doesn't matter about the money. As soon as one club that's not an absolute laughing stock wants you, you're not going to go to United, are you?
And United signed a Belgian goalkeeper called Semi Lamens, who looks a little bit like Thibaut Courtois, and enough to make me think they might have been tricked again.
Okay, nice. I like that. Yeah, nice. Well, I'll have my Manchester United time. Thank you very much. Antony and Rasmus Højlund have both left Manchester United for Real Betis and Napoli, respectively. It's a big loss in funds, you would say, for Manchester United. A lot of money stumped up for Antony back in 2022 from Ajax. Very, very short period of time to lose that amount. But a £38 million obligation to buy clause has been included in the deal for Rasmus Højlund. Even for a Man United player leaving on loan, Luke, I have to say Rasmus Højlund, I think he's going to have an incredible season. Denmark have got an easy World Cup group. You heard me, Scotland. And he's just going to have the best World Cup, and he's going to become a different footballer where he's ended up. And it's going to be a tale as old as time. You leave Man United, you have a bloody lovely time, specifically in Italy.
Oh, he's clearly going to be absolutely outstanding in every department, because that's how football is with Man United now.
That's how Man United is.
Kevin De Bruyne and Ballon d'Or candidate Scott McTominay just serving things up to him on a plate. He's going to have a brilliant time.
Yeah, learning from Romelu. Lovely.
I feel like on the taking the money hit, Pete, I think you've just got to. There comes a time when you just got to cut your losses on something, right? You know when they've made an investment, a huge amount of money. They basically only did it because Man City got a Scandinavian striker that looked like that, and they wanted one as well. And they, I mean, particularly when it comes to Antony, for example, they just have to just say, look, we've got to draw a line under it, we've got to move on. They also have to get some money in the door, don't they? Because they want to do other business and stuff like that. And I think it's just the nature of football these days. Man United are a laughing stock for those different reasons. But I don't think anyone would necessarily begrudge them moving on these types of players. I mean, I think they've actually done fairly well given the relative reputation of these players, given how their performances have been. I think it's actually all right business for them. I do. You're never, ever, ever in a million years going to get the money back you pay for them. This is never going to happen.
Yeah.
Because the only people who pay that amount of money for that kind of player is Man United.
Yeah.
They can't say it to themselves.
That's
they
the
can't go to Chelsea. You know,
sell your women's club, your women's team. I mean, people talking about the Isak deal, like they sort of said, 125 million. That's a lot of money. That's a market rate for a striker who's had such a good season as he's had. I mean, they signed him for like 60 million, so it's not an embarrassment of riches that they. So you've got to remember this amount of money, that's sort of going into the club. You're going to be losing at the end of it. Elsewhere, Tottenham have agreed a season-long loan for PSG's Randal Kolo Muani. Kolo Muani scored 8 goals in 16 Serie A games for Juventus in the second half of last season. Very promising footballer. It's their 4th senior signing of the summer. They had Kudus in, Polinia, Xavi Simons, and the sort of headlines obviously that they missed out on certain players like Eze, but it's been a really positive sort of summer window for Tottenham, and they look a hell of a lot better under Thomas Frank.
I think they've had a really, really good window here, and I think there's an argument that of all those attacking midfielders mentioned, Eze and Gibbs-White included, given his age in particular, that Xavi Simons has got the potential to be the best of all of them. And I don't think they'll care about the players they've missed out on now based on the quality of him in particular. But also Kolo Muani is a really exciting player to come in and provide kind of competition in a position where they do kind of need it. Because Richarlison has played well this season, but he has toiled a little bit, and he is a bit of a kind of imperfect player, isn't he, in a lot of ways. And I think Kolo Muani just gives you something different there as well. And I believe he's also fairly effective as a wide player too. So they've really, really bolstered their attacking options there. And obviously we've spoken quite a lot about Polinia and how they already look a bit more kind of defensively solid than they did under Ange Postecoglou with the same personnel. So I think they have made a huge improvement with not actually that many signings there. They've had a really good window.
Spurs may have had a better transfer window in recent years, but I can't think of when they have.
No.
Because it's the turn. I mean, missing out on Gibbs-White and Eze, particularly the Eze thing in the circumstances, was a blow. But Jim's spot on there. I think, Kudus, Polinia, Simons, and Kolo Muani at Spurs. I mean, Spurs are a good team, right? They're better than they showed last season. The manager was clearly an issue. They've obviously now got Champions League football because they won the Europa League, which gives them a hand in attracting these players. But that is, if you said to a Spurs fan, if you said to anyone at the start of the window, Spurs are going to sign these 4 players, you would be saying, wow, Yeah. So you got to give them the credit. I also think, I know there's no option I don't think there's an option to buy for Kolo Muani, but I also think that, linking it back to what we were just talking about in Man United, loaning players in this way to start with is probably the best way to do business.
Yeah.
Because if you can build an option in there, it's just a try before you buy, right? It's just like putting a probation period in an employee's contract, right? What they're going to be
pretty much
like.
There with them, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think they've done. I think they've done an absolutely sensational window, and I'm saying that off the back of their, frankly, appalling performance against Bournemouth at the weekend. But
we let everyone down there.
It's a great way to let your fans forget about that fucking first half. Tell me, trust me.
Our manager's sort of going back to basics with Muani. He's like 6'2". Most teams this window have signed big strikers.
Yeah, big unit.
And our big boys back.
Big boys are back. Fuck you, Short
boys.
Kings.
I think their presence speaks for itself, mate. They're absolutely back.
Yeah, you're going back to basics with the old management team.
I think all I would just say is the only thing I could say on the other side of the ledger on the Spurs business, and talking about Jim's point with Simons versus Eze and Gibbs-White, clearly in the case of Simons and Kolo Muani, you've got a question mark there over the adjustment to the Premier League factor, right? And I'm only saying that because Matthias Tell, who looked like one of the best young players around, has struggled.
Yeah,
right.
I think their age factors in though, right? They're both at an age where they're experienced, yet they still have a lot of their careers in front of them, which is ideal.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm not denigrating it. I think, like I said, I think it's the best piece. I think it's the best window they've had. I don't know ever, but for a very, very long time.
Another team that I think have probably signed quite well, quite responsibly, quite intelligently, but quite late, has to be said, are Aston Villa. They've signed Jadon Sancho on loan, and perhaps, and definitely more importantly, they've signed Harvey Elliot from Liverpool. Liverpool really probably didn't want to sell that footballer at the age bracket that he is, and obviously been a homegrown player and all that stuff. They've inserted a buyback clause with Harvey Elliott's contract with Villa, so that's interesting. They clearly value him as an individual. But what a great signing quite late on, Luke, Harvey.
Yeah, and it is. He desperately needed a move just because of circumstances. No criticism of him, no criticism of Liverpool. It's just one of those situations where, given the summer that he has to play, and Villa need someone clearly based on their start they've had this season. And Sancho, what do we know about Sancho? I mean, at this point, not much. Clearly got a very high ceiling. Clearly a really good player on his day. Hasn't shown what he can do for a long time now, and so he needs to. At some point, you try and restart the engine over and over again. It doesn't start. After a while, you need to have a look under the bonnet, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it wouldn't be me looking under the bonnet because I'm absolutely clueless. I'll be driving down to the quick fit at the bottom of the road.
All right, money.
I know. I mean, is it problem? But can I, Jim? Before I hand over to you, can I just say one quick thing? I fear for Villa. I fear for them now, and I'll tell you why. Because if you look at Unai Emery's career, you're pretty much at the exact inflection point when shit starts to go wrong and he starts to move on. He's never been a manager at a club for longer than what? I think it might even be, you'd have to look it up, it might even be that he's now been at Villa longer than he's been anywhere else. He was at Sevilla for a long while, about around the same amount of time. But this is the time when it starts to go a bit wrong. And if you look at that interview he gave, that bizarre thing, you wonder whether the writing's on the wall, particularly given the start they had. They were abject against Palace at home. Palace are a good away side, but Villa's whole reputation under Emery has been built on how good they are at home.
Yeah.
And so, to me, Elliot might be going into the fire there, and he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, and he needs to replicate that form. But I agree, he totally needed a move, and Villa's a big club, and it's a great landing spot for him in theory, but who knows what's going to happen there, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. This is very much the point where it tends to go stale for Unai Emery. Obviously, every situation is different, so this might just be a poor start. They've got fresh players in there now. But in the best case scenario, he's a very good manager when it comes to rehabilitating players. And I think it's very clear, isn't it, that Jadon Sancho needs an individual who is going to put a lot of time into him and work out whatever it is he needs to get himself back into the form that we've seen at Dortmund. And he's possibly the ideal candidate for that. Another interesting thing with Villa is we're all a huge fan of I didn't realise he'd gone there transfer from transfer deadline day, particularly ones when they're as chaotic as this. And recently, Victor Lindelof signed for Villa on a free.
Lovely under the radar, wasn't it?
That's in that category for sure.
It's a nice little Premier League stalwart signing, really. He's got a lot of experience. You're not signing from the Championship or Italy or something like that. It's not unproven. We kind of know everything we need to know about Victor Lindelof. I kind of like that signing.
I think it's probably quite underwhelming if you support Villa, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
not if fine. You know for sure and you remind yourself that because he was at Man United, he's playing about 20% of his ability.
Yes,
yeah, good point.
Very good point.
Yeah.
People move on. They move away from Manchester United, get rehabilitated, and then they go to Barcelona.
He's going to be like the reincarnation. Actually, no, he's not dead, is he? I was going to say the reincarnation of like prime John Terry. It's a body in there. It's a body. Emery loves a signing, and he absolutely loves a signing in a position where he's already got players.
Yeah, he's just a guy who likes project cars, doesn't he? He's speaking of cars. He's just got his
Imagine
house.
His garage drive on his garage.
Yeah, his house is just covered, like his entire front sort of garden is just covered in old mini metros and stuff, just in various
You're saying
states of
Lindelof's
disrepair.
a mini metro?
He's a mini metro. He's a mini metro in bits.
Not driving a mini metro, Lynn.
All right, we'll be back in just a moment with more unbelievable transfer moves. Welcome back to the Football Ramble. Chelsea have confirmed a deal, which has seen Nicolas Jackson loaned to Bayern Munich with an obligation to buy. Luke Moore, I think you said on the WhatsApp yesterday, Chelsea are an unbelievable shifter of man meat.
They are, but I have to defer to Jim because Jim is the official Nicolas Jackson correspondent. And
right, okay, nice.
Yes, he's like the Kate Adie of Nicolas Jackson.
Yeah. I'm Nicolas Jackson, the Olympian, and the Olympic boxer. And Jimmy
Marcus
Walsh
is Michael Jackson.
Michael Jackson, yeah. We've all got a little Jackson,
I'm Latoya Jackson.
in there.
I'm Latoya Jackson, who for a while was rumoured to be Michael Jackson.
She was,
nice.
yeah.
I like
she
that.
also released an album of covers called He's My Brother.
Nice. That's me.
Quite something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I mentioned once or twice that Nicolas Jackson makes quite a high number of runs in behind defenders, that if he could just be slightly better at finishing, his output would be quite drastically better.
Yeah.
I am now the Nicolas Jackson correspondent. Yeah. I take that on with pride.
Yeah. You're moving to Munich, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. It's just easier for me to be there.
Harry
it makes
Kane's
more sense.
brother.
Jim's recording it. Yeah, you're the Charlie Kane.
You're the Charlie Kane to
Jim
Nicolas
Jackson.
Jackson.
There you go.
Jim Jackson.
I'll draw a line on that or under that. It's an amazing fee. It's an absolutely amazing fee. The loan fee is something like 15 million, and then the whole fee will be something like 70 million.
As an Arsenal fan, you must be raging.
It's unbelievable. We've loaned Alexander Zinchenko for a year when he's only got a year left on his contract. Obviously, because he's on massive wages, but it's still like, I think other teams might do better than that. In
Chelsea would have
team.
sold Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain for 400 million.
Yeah, exactly. To themselves, somehow. And then sold him back to us. But yeah, it's an amazing amount of money. It makes me wonder, because it seems unusual that a Bundesliga club, even Bayern Munich, would spend this much on a backup striker. Like, is he the succession plan for Harry Kane? It's so much money.
I don't really know. I should have listened more closely to Andy Brassel on Sky Sports News last night because he probably covered it.
Too busy texting.
But you know me, I glaze over. The way that they've been able to convince them to, as Jim's just alluded to, like part with this amount of cash for that player is kind of extraordinary, really.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you sometimes find with the Premier League, and Man United have suffered from this badly, is that because Premier League is such a cash cow, they bring players in for such big money on such big wages. The players aren't considering realistically going somewhere because they're not going to take such a big pay cut. Now, Munich's probably an exception to that because they're such a big club, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you're right to say that, it's kind of extraordinary deal, given that, is it an obligation to buy or is it an option?
With an obligation to buy, yeah.
Right. So, that's just wild, man.
Jackson is also on better terms than the ones they negotiated before the Liam Delap.
I saw that.
So he's come out of it really well as well.
Mm.
And the obviously as a Sunderland,
they probably had Liam Delap doing the sums, Jim. That's why it came out so well.
Yeah, well, maybe that's it. And also, we know they've got a lot of hypnonists, so they're probably taking them along to meetings and getting that much money out of clubs.
Yeah.
But as a Sunderland aficionado, Pete, you'll probably be quite sad that they recalled Marc Guehi, I think that's how you pronounce that, to from his loan on Sunderland to replace Jackson. So that's mugged them off on deadline day. That's annoying.
Chelsea's kind of loan players basically just feathered everyone's nests, and when they start, losing players that they have to bring people back, it's a different Chelsea that I don't really understand. I don't like it. I just don't like it. Lads, he's out of a job. Erik ten Hag's gone and buy Leverkusen. 2 games of the season. They're not usually this so aggressive, the German clubs. But yeah, I mean, he's had a stinker, really. Highlights from his time at Leverkusen include a 5-1 loss to Flamengo's under-20s in pre-season, after which he said, I don't give a shit about results in pre-season. Well, the club certainly do. Granit Xhaka was told he wasn't to be allowed to leave, only for him to leave for Sunderland days later, despite being told by the club's hierarchy that they were going to let him leave anyway. It's all very confusing there, but what isn't confusing is that Erik ten Hag, Luke, is out of a job once more. Andy Brassel called Erik ten Hag's tenure at Leverkusen a historic failure.
Yeah, and the captain of Leverkusen said they were living in misery or something, didn't they?
Yeah, he did. Robert Andrich.
Quite the impact.
He's got a bit of rep in Europe, and he's smashed it into the floor again.
One thing we can all agree that when players leave Man United, they seem to be much better, but when managers leave, they seem to be a lot worse.
Yeah, he is like Kevin Ten Keegan at this point, isn't he? He's like the most hapless man in Europe.
Well, the one thing that Brassel said, which I found fascinating, was when he came out, Ten Hag, he was in a press conference, and he was asked a pretty easy to flat bat away question about Granit Xhaka. He then delivered an answer which was not only completely at odds with the club's policy, with the fact that they were going to sell him and they wanted to get his wages off the bill and they knew they could get money for him, blah blah blah, because the way that Ten Hag plays and all the rest of it. He then just delivered a line in the press conference in public in front of the country's press, which was completely at odds with what he'd agreed in the meeting with his bosses 2 days before.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they were like completely blindsided by it. So hang on a minute, this is not what we said. This is not what you're supposed to be saying. What's going on? And what I love about that is that, like, you can have owners and sporting directors and all these people pulling the strings, but they don't ever really give press conferences or talk about policy. You have to rely on your manager, who also becomes like a figurehead and a spokesman for the club, to not be like a totally rogue agent. So they must have been sitting there like raging, like fuming in the background. And so I think it's been as much about his conduct
Culture.
as it has been the performances. And the reason you have to come down that side of things is because there just haven't been enough games for people to say whether he's good or not.
Yeah.
Can I also add, though, sorry, Jim, just very quickly, Leverkusen have sold a lot of players, and he's coming after Alonso being historically good. So you can talk about historic failures, and I get why Andy said that. But he was also, to be fair to him, and he's not helped himself, but he was coming into... It's a really difficult situation.
Did you see the circumstances of the game that, was the final and
the 3-3
also second straw that broke the camel's back? Yeah, they were against Werder Bremen, 3-1 up. Werder Bremen are down to 10 men. They're not a good team. They might struggle this season. Werder Bremen managed to get it back to 3-3 right in the last minute. But the funny thing about it is that one of Leverkusen's goals was a penalty, and Patrick Schick is the designated taker. So as he's kind of getting ready to take the penalty, Ezekiel Palacios wants to take it, right? So they're having a bit of a ding-dong about it. And then up comes Captain Robert Andrick. So he grabs the ball, gives it to Schick, and then Palacios kicks it away. So they've got this like farcical situation where it's taken them ages to decide who's even going to take the penalty. They're having a row about it. And after the game, Ten Hag said it was very clear who the penalty takers were, and they simply didn't implement that. It's got no authority at all.
It's Donald Trump outside the Oval Office. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Oh, fantastic.
Where does he go next, Ten Hag? Where does he go? I mean, the answer is obviously Turkey. But
it's Turkey, always Turkey. He's breaking records. He's breaking correct. God, that'd be. Where would you get the seeds from? I don't know.
Seeds.
How do you think that works?
You don't know how it works.
It's called seeding, isn't it?
They're not watering people's heads.
No, I know, but the seeding is they take the seeds out of the ground at the back of the head and they put it to the front of the head. Bundesliga.
We put grass in.
No,
he's silly now.
No, good.
And now it's gone yellow because it's been very dry this summer.
Historically dry. Jamie Vardy, gentlemen, Ramble favourite and a man seeing out the last couple of years of his career at Serie A club Cremonese. Vardy signed for the club and then instantly signed a tattoo of his own face on a fan's leg. That's a hepatitis risk, surely.
I mean, how has he had such a big impact so quickly?
Yeah, well, I think if you're a fan of that club, you would be like looking at sort of him coming in. It's going to be fun. It's going to be frenetic, and he's probably going to score a hatful of goals in quite leggy Serie A, you would say.
I don't know. He's 38. I hope he scores a hatful of goals. But I think it's going to be a sort of
this is going to be a Ramble trope.
This
is going to be a Ramble trope. He's going to be absolutely knocking them in for fun. Marcus, as an ex-England squad player, he can't resist talking about it. So it's going to be every week. It's going to be like Phil Neville.
I think it's how the stars, it's written in the stars, I mean, Jamie Vardy was always going to end up at the end of his career, given his cultural reputation, at the home of famous Roman poet Marcus Furius Bibiculus. We all agree. We all knew that was going to happen.
We all said that.
He's the natural heir to that. And by the way, also, Cremona is the home or the birthplace, I believe, of the late great Luca Vialli as well. So,
a
great striker. A lovely head striker in his early days, but a bit of a legend as well. So maybe Vardy can get in there and score some goals to the memory of the great Luca Vialli.
I will never get tired of old English players going to Serie A and having a lovely time and becoming cult heroes. I cannot. I'd like a sort of England England or Britain, British best 11. I think in the next 10 years. Absolutely fantastic.
I don't think he's quite going to take to it the same way McTominay has, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'll be very surprised if it's formalised to that degree as well. But
yeah, I
fancy it.
Also, I know that Cremonese is in the north of Italy and it's a very different part of the country, but just for the equivalency, you know, McTominay's embraced Naples life, right, in many different ways. If that was Vardy, he'd be dressed all in black on a moped, stealing people's mobile phones, and there's no fucking doubt about that. You know, so let's just see how it goes.
But I just want to see the European energy drinks that people are drinking, the different flavours of Monster, etc.
Yeah.
You know, European Skittles, lovely.
Yeah. Toro Rosso, baby. Pete, that's Red Bull in Italian.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. And also, the final thing now I want to say is that this has all the makings of a new Ian Rush rather than a new Scott McTominay. I mean, he's going to come back in 2 months' time saying it was like living in a foreign country, which I know Ian Rush never said, but it's a funny story.